Hi everyone, Shadow Spurs here. Wanted to give you a quick update. Now that I'm back from my travels, could break down a couple of points that I've been wanting to discuss for a while, and also give a couple of insights into who I am, what I do, and then also wanted to take a deeper dive into something a little bit different to the norm, and just get into our injury situation, injury crisis at Tottenham, and maybe some of the reasons why for it, and maybe some of the undiscussed reasons for it. I think it's vitally important to understand and something that I've been wanting to put together for a while. So, just to get into last night's performance, obviously fantastic Champions League night under the lights. Can't really complain about the performance. Can't complain much about the tactics. There was a 10-15 minute stretch when we really dropped deep after scoring the first goal. And I will obviously, everyone was probably like, oh no, not again. Here we go. But other than that, just a really, really enjoyable performance. And makes us all wonder why, where, how we can be the fourth best team in Europe, but we can't perform at any consistent level in the Premier League. Again, we can get into that in further detail, but I think at this point, sometimes, as I've said, you've got to enjoy the highs, and there's no point sitting here moaning about everything that's negative surrounding Tottenham. There's a great deal of negativity surrounding Tottenham at the moment for obvious reasons. It could be anything from Robert Zerbi's about to get the sack in his current job, and so that accelerates the talk of him being a top target for Spurs in the summer. So could we move for him now if he gets currently sacked there? Revolves around, you know, Jean-Philippe Mateta, who is apparently going to Nottingham Forest from Crystal Palace. They're obviously abandoning Crystal Palace like the proverbial rats from a sinking ship. And we're going to hijack that move. Potentially we will. Not a particularly Tottenham type signing, given our recent um, desire to sign younger, um, not ready players. Obviously, Mateta is prem proven, but 29 wouldn't have a great deal of sell on value. Only really broken onto the scene the last couple of years in terms of performing consistently at the highest level. The Andy Robertson situation is obviously back on, and Tottenham wanted to sign Robertson on a free at the end of the season, but have accelerated that interest given our recent injury problems. Obviously, Ben Davis was kind of the icing on the cake for that one. Looks like it could happen. I would watch out for that. I'd mentioned about Joshua Zirkzee. That was just something that I'd heard on my travels. I am not a football person per se in terms of career, but my company offers AI insight for various channels, generally e-commerce, and obviously, like it or love, like it or hate it, e-commerce is a part of football these days, and companies transitioning to a more AI heavy, AI intensive setup are looking for information, consultation, and so that's what I do. I will actually in the future, for anybody who cares to watch or cares to listen, I will be more than happy to provide videos regarding AI and how to integrate that into YouTube content creation to um, give an insight into that process, how to set up a channel, how to run a channel, how to integrate AI into that channel, and essentially take advantage of the hyper growth of large language models at present. I know might sound boring, definitely a lot more boring than football, and not as emotional, but um, that's That's my current business, and I would be more than happy to share if anyone was interested in wanting to learn more about that side of it to maybe kickstart a fledgling content creation career. Or alternatively, if you're trying to set up an e-commerce store and need tips, I'd be happy to do that on this channel. Try and link up something synergistically between the football and the plethora of content creation that's out there, particularly for Tottenham Hotspur. Tottenham Hotspur as a club is the number one club in the world, it would appear, for channels regarding discussing all things Tottenham. Not a surprise, given on any given day there is news, there is crisis, there is turmoil, there is ups, downs, the highs of Bilbao all the way down to currently what we're witnessing in the Premier League this season. But anyway, I'd mentioned on my travels I picked up a couple of bits and pieces. Nothing really much of a revelation to any of you who follow football, probably even more closely than I do. The board situation, Vinay Venkatesham, and the fact that he has put all of his eggs in the Thomas Frank basket, citing Arsenal and what he did at Arsenal as the model. I could get into that here about how what we're witnessing at Tottenham is very, very different from what was going on Arsenal at the time, particularly at board level. Extraordinarily unsettled, extraordinarily factional, certain people wanting certain things, no real cohesion as a board strategy. And you could say that for a long time about Tottenham, that they have not had a club strategy that would allow any manager to come in and run the club. We've moved from Pochettino to then a host of managers. Some of them win now in Conte and Jose Mourinho. Obviously, Ange with his high line, insane, suicidal tactics. And now Frank, much more pragmatic. There's no cohesion there, there's no strategy. So when you're buying players, you're buying them for the manager, not for the club. And so we've not really seen any form of plan going forward. And a lot of that stems from the fact that there's a lot of voices with a lot of opinions on how to do things. Currently, Vinay's winning out with his support for Frank. Last night's obviously going to vindicate that to a degree, but that should not take away from the fact that in the Premier League, the tactics being employed or lack of tactics being employed for someone who's a master tactician are extremely problematic. As I said, I'm not going to get into that too much right now. I just wanted to kind of circle back on what I'd said previously about some of the bits and pieces that I'd heard going around Tottenham Hotspur. The Joshua Zirkzee thing from Man United came out of the blue, but was almost one of those elevator moments when you just somebody mentions something and you pick it up and you ride down with them in the elevator and then off they go and off you go and you're wondering, did I really hear that correctly? Xerxes obviously had a very challenging start to his time at Man United. Again, extreme potential, but not ready today to hit the ground running for Tottenham Hotspur, which is essentially what we need. Hence, we come back to the Mateta rumours. So, jumping all around a little bit here, but I wanted to give you an insight into wrapping up the last few posts that I'd made, and then also kind of re-emphasize why I was doing what I was doing, given my time as a Tottenham fan over the last 50 odd years. I know I don't look like I've been supporting Tottenham for 50 years, but when I was a baby, as I said, my dad put me in a Tottenham shirt, put my son in an Arsenal shirt for a joke. My dad was a Spurs fan. He's the one to blame for all of this. Sadly, no longer around, not with us anymore, so I can't blame him anymore. So the journey started there, and it's been a journey of extreme highs, some significant lows, and a lot of turgid, tedious times in the middle, whether that be in the 90s or early 2000s. Obviously, for those fans who are newer and can experience the Pochettino years or came on board to Tottenham as a supporter in the Pochettino years, you were spoiled, let me tell you. But I wouldn't have it any other way supporting Tottenham, regardless of what we're going through currently. Uh, Tottenham is one of those clubs that even if you wanted to essentially quit, you can't. There's a strong emotional pull with Tottenham, and a lot of that stems from the DNA of the club, from the team of the '60s, whether that be Bill Nicholson or even Arthur Rowe with Push and Run or whatever it may be that you are what attracted you to Tottenham. It has a very strong emotional pull, and sometimes it's a love hate relationship. Sometimes it's not. My love for the club has endured, um, regardless. And interestingly, without getting into, you don't need my life history, but I'm fortunate enough to have an incredible family surrounding me and support. But that's not always been the case. And like many of you out there, the one constant in my life has always been Tottenham. It's been the one thing that I can rely on to be there all the time, every day in, day out, good and bad, emotional pull, interest, love, hate. And it's got that love of football has got me through some very difficult times, and that love of Tottenham. And I will say, just to cap this off without getting too emotional, um, the one place where I feel like I'm at home is at White Hart Lane. I'll call it White Hart Lane rather than the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. That feeling of calm that descends over me before the beginning of a game is something that I cherish and something that I look forward to experience. I know that regardless of the turmoil that's going on in my life or at Tottenham, that those brief moments before kickoff, when I'm sitting in my seat or having a drink pre-match, is is one of those good moments in life, and we all need more of that, I would say. So I just wanted to get into a little bit about the injury crisis around Tottenham because I have a little bit of a different take on it to maybe to others. But perhaps it's bad luck. Maybe perhaps it's just stress, overtraining. We could say maybe to that as well. But if you look at the injuries that are currently affecting our first team, you have Pedro Porro out with a hamstring injury. He's expected to miss around 4 weeks, it would seem. I think he's got a target date, return date of March. Mickey van der Ven, he's got a minor issue that kept him out of training for the Frankfurt game, but Frank has said he could be back for the Manchester match. Sorry, he probably will be. Ben Davis, we've probably seen him play his last game for Spurs, which is sad given his 11 years of service to the club. But he has a serious ankle fracture, which is awful. He probably won't be back until the end of the season. Bergval, who's had some real bad luck with injuries, particularly after the concussion. He has a lower leg and ankle injury that needed surgery. He's not expected back until mid-April. Bentancur, he's got a hamstring problem from January, early in January. The guidance there is a little bit more vague. He's going to be missing till April as well, but no real actual target date. Richarlison picked up that hamstring injury, as you all know. He's going to have about another 7 week absence, maybe. So from where we are today, you're looking at first week of March, second week of March is the rough aim there. Kudus, which was obviously a serious blow for us, given our reliance, or rather over reliance on him. He's got a quad tendon hamstring type issue. He's expected back after the March international break. Kulusevski, obviously, Kula's been out for so long, desperately needed back. Very complicated knee injury for him. Still no firm return date, but that's probably due. He's had some frustration in rehab, and there's been some murmurings of that he's quite frustrated with his ongoing rehab and why things are not accelerating as quickly as he would like and the club would like. Obviously, Matters is out with his ACL, serious problem. Ligament damage always is a tough one. While he's been giving some really, really interesting, by the way, YouTube videos. I encourage anybody to go check out the life of a footballer while they're injured. Mattis has been creating some good content there. Probably, yeah, he's ruled out for the rest of the season, as you know. The other ones, obviously, Colin and Wilson Odobert involved in the minor car accident, which disrupted preparations, but as you can see, that didn't have any significant effect on the result. It appears that Colomani only plays well when he's playing against teams that he's played for at the moment. So if you look at that in its entirety with like major players that are out, there's some others as well that I'm not going to get into at the moment. Um, it's tough, and it's really really left us at bare bones. And I will obviously discuss the fact that Enoch 2.0, rather 1.1, uh, going to leave us short again probably after the promises of owning the window. Haven't forgot that one. They seem to have got away with that at the moment, but I don't remember. I remember that one when when it was spoken of. In the boardroom that we're going to own the window. Well, we haven't owned the window quite yet. But I just wanted to talk about the injuries themselves, the science behind them. Apologies if it's boring. I'm not trying to say I'm a physiotherapist, but taking a deeper dive, which is what I really started the channel to do with Shadow Spurs, is to take a deeper dive into certain parts of maybe the not so often seen parts of the game. It's not bad luck. It's statistically impossible, really, to have this many injuries and some of them non-contact, which means that they have more of a systemic cause. So if you take your Tottenham fan hat off for a minute, put on your sports scientist hat, and let's take a look at some of the acute and chronic injuries that we're experiencing, and try and understand why. Hamstrings being one, because obviously this is, why is it that we keep seeing some of these same injuries over and over again? If you're looking at the hamstring, obviously, hamstring's a large muscle at the back of your thigh, and it's unique in the sense of for footballers because it's biarticular, which means that it crosses two joints at the hip and the knee, and so the danger zone isn't just pushing off. It's what they call the terminal swing phase, which is the exact millisecond when the leg is fully extended in the air right before the foot hits the ground. And at this moment, the hamstring stretched to its absolute limit at the hip, while simultaneously trying to contract at the knee to slow the leg down for impact. So, under our current system, and obviously Ange's system, even more so under Ange's system, the defenders were constantly sprinting back towards our own goal to cover transition. Obviously, this season we've been under the cosh quite a bit because we haven't been able to control in midfield, and so there've been a lot of those recovery runs, which place a really significant load on the hamstring, much more than a normal forward attacking run. So when players have to slam on the brakes and turn around, that muscle handles force up to 8 times their body weight. Um, and so if there's any previous damage to that part of the muscle or that part of the leg, any micro tears from previous games that haven't healed, they don't stretch, they shear, and that's the pop you see on TV, almost like that pop that the hamstrings gone. So we're seeing a great deal of that, and a lot of it can be put down to those recovery runs and the need to stop so immediately. I will say also that modern football pitches in general, not all of them, but the majority of them, are much, much firmer compared to even a decade ago. And a lot of that is given the new technology with the way that the irrigation is laid on the pitch. I know you didn't come here to listen to a video about landscaping, but um, the irrigation required to water a Premier League pitch is very, very complex, and therefore the layer beneath that, the membrane below, to protect any kind of leakage from, significant leakage from the irrigation, essentially. They require much harder surface underneath, and the grass is much thinner essentially in terms of a layer on top of the pitch. And so you're running on much harder surfaces, and obviously that comes with its downsides. Um, if we're talking about knees, these ACL injuries that we've been seeing, they're generally from neuromuscular fatigue. Now, what that means, uh, I can only put it this way: your muscles are dumb, your brain is smart. So your brain tells your muscles to tighten up just before you land, just before you jump, just before you make a turn. Your brain's immediately sending a message to your muscles. So what happens is the brain is essentially saying to the knee joint, you need to stabilize. But in the high intensity system that we've been experiencing post, during Angie's tenure, and generally now in much more intense Premier League games, um, what happens is we're pushing players much further, much harder into what's called metabolic failure, essentially. And when you're that tired, even if you don't feel it, your brain signals slow down. And so the signal from the brain, instead of arriving in 30 milliseconds, it arrives in 50. Now, that doesn't sound much, but that delay, the 20 milliseconds, the foot plants, the muscles are still relaxed, they're not tight, the knee buckles inward, and the ACL happens. So a lot of that could be down to fatigue, metabolic fatigue. I will touch on in a second about the mental side of the game. But if you're looking at things, why can't these athletes? They're elite athletes. They have the best of care, best of physio, best of nutrition, best lifestyle that you could possibly imagine. Well, now and again, not all of them. I guess we won't talk about Basuma, but most of them have a very healthy lifestyle. So if you look at chronic load and how much a player is running over the last 4 weeks, it builds up and up and up within their system. And because we have injuries, the healthy players are forced to play more, 90 minutes twice a week, whatever it may be. And that acute load is massive for players. And so any anytime you're forcing a healthy player to push themselves into the danger zone, you're covering for injured players all the time. You're then putting a much larger load onto those players as well, and so the circle goes, and so the cycle goes. So how do we fix it? And I know that we could talk about the medical team at Tottenham all day long. We've sacked them, we've brought them back, we've sacked them, we're trying to basically revitalize that division. It's not about better physiotherapy. It's about microdosing exposure to stress, and the only way of doing that is by building a better squad, and that is a key reason. If you look at our squad, if you look at the players that play week in, week out, if you're not rotating, if you don't have the ability to rotate, you're just putting strain on the same players. So it's no coincidence that Tottenham have had the issues that they've had, because they're pushing the same players over and over and over again. And it's been like that. How long have we said we've been left short in the transfer window? Year after year after year of just not getting the depth within the squad of players that could rotate and be ready to play in the Premier League. It's all well and good having potential. It's all well and good having young players. And don't get me wrong, we all love seeing a young player come through. But what Spurs needs right now is depth, and depth to take the load off the other players. Other teams are rotating their football players at 60 minutes. We are not, and so it's no surprise why they're all breaking down. Is because the it's essentially the load is too much on them. The other side I wanted to touch on briefly, so I'm not going to bang on about physiotherapy again for you. I know that's not really why you're here, but it's important because it's an unseen side of the game, unseen side of what's going on at Tottenham. The mental side of it is massive. And when your players under siege, you feel like everything's going against you, the results are poor, the coach is under massive pressure. Psychologically, you're not balanced. And that psychological stress takes a massive toll on your system in general. If you're persistently in a state of fight or flight or anxiety all the time because things are poor or you can't get the results as a team that you want, that only increases that metabolic load and stress on a footballer. And it feels like at Tottenham, we've been stuck in that cycle for the last 3 years, at least. And combine that with lack of decent squad depth, which also takes its toll because not only do you then have the stress in a weird way, what I was talking about of your brain not being as quick to catch up, you're also a little bit laid back because no one's pushing for your place. So you have this weird kind of I'm comfortable, but I'm unhappy. And it leads to what we're seeing, which is endless injury over and over and over again to our first team squad. So I'll leave that one there. I really thought it was fascinating when I started looking into it about what could be going on at Tottenham. And all of it started to fall into place given our lack of investment in the club and in the first team. And if the board do anything over the next few days, if they can bring in, okay, Robertson on the left side, great, but we need at least somebody up front who can put the ball in the back of the net, and we need somebody on the left wing who can bring a spark of creativity. If you take the number of goals that we've taken out of this side over the last few years, Kane, Sonny, Johnson's our top scorer last year. How many teams are the defenders combined top scorers at a club? It's no surprise why we are where we are. We have essentially taken all the goals out of this side. And scoring goals in the Premier League is the hardest thing to do. And if you don't have the players to do that, Solanke aside, then you have a problem. So I hope you found it vaguely interesting. If you haven't, I apologize. I wanted to give you some insight into what I see, what I don't see on the pitch. I appreciate anybody that listens to anybody bang on for 20, 30 minutes about hamstrings. And I will see you next time. Shadow Spurs out.